Imagine a book so massive it takes two people to lift it. A book filled with ancient texts, strange illustrations, and a chilling legend that links it to the devil himself. This is the Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible. One of the most fascinating manuscripts in history. This massive tome, created in the 13th century, contains the complete Bible, along with other historical and medical texts, all written in Latin on over 300 pages of animal skin. But what truly sets the Codex Gigas apart is its infamous full-page illustration of the devil, a menacing figure that has fueled centuries of speculation and legend. The Codex Gigas is a goddamn behemoth of a book. It's 36 inches long, 20 inches wide, and almost 9 inches thick. You need two people just to lift the damn thing. It's the largest known medieval manuscript, and it's filled with all sorts of crazy shit. The book itself is bound in wooden boards covered in leather, with fancy metal decorations. It's made up of over 300 pages of vellum, which is basically animal skin. Legend has it that it took 160 donkey hides to make this monster, but it could have been calf skin instead. Either way, that's a lot of dead animals. The text is written in Latin, and it includes the entire Bible along with some other historical and medical texts. But what really makes this book stand out are the illustrations. There are colorful illuminations in red, blue, yellow, green, and gold, with elaborate capital letters at the beginning of each book of the Bible. The weirdest thing about the Codex Gigas is that the handwriting is consistent throughout the entire book. It's like the scribe never aged, never got sick, and never even took a fucking break. This has led to the legend that the whole book was written in a single night with the help of the devil. But scientists are skeptical, and they think it probably took more than 20 years to complete. Originally, the book had 320 pages, but 12 of them were ripped out at some point. No one knows who did it or why, but it adds another layer of mystery to this already bizarre book. Now let's talk about the most infamous part of the Codex Gigas, the devil illustration. This thing takes up a whole page, and it's pretty damn creepy. The devil is shown front and center, crouching with his arms raised like he's about to pounce on some unsuspecting soul. He's wearing a white loincloth with little red dashes on it, which some people think are ermine tails, a symbol of royalty. However, he doesn't have a tail, and his body is surprisingly human-like. But then you notice his hands and feet. They only have 4 fingers and toes each, ending in big-ass claws, and those claws, along with his horns, are bright red. His head is large and green, with a mop of curly hair that looks like a skull cap. His eyes are wide open, with red pupils that seem to stare right through you, and his mouth is open, revealing a set of small white teeth with 2 long red tongues sticking out from the corners. This double-tongued monstrosity is a classic symbol of Satan in Christian art and demonology. It's meant to evoke the forked tongue of a serpent, another form that Satan is often depicted in. The pages leading up to the devil illustration are pretty creepy too. They're written in yellow ink on blackened parchment, giving them a gloomy and ominous vibe. This discoloration is because those pages have been exposed to light over the centuries, as countless people have flipped through the book to gawk at the devil's portrait. The Codex Gigas has a pretty wild history, full of twists and turns that are almost as bizarre as the book itself. It was created in the 13th century by a monk named Herman the Recluse, who lived in a Benedictine monastery in Bohemia, which is now part of the Czech Republic. This monastery was destroyed in the 15th century during some religious wars, but you can still see a model of it in a museum in the town of Krast. The records in the Codex Gigas end in the year 1222, so we know it was finished around that time. Shortly after it was written, the monks pawned the book off to another monastery, the Cistercian monks of the Sedlec Abbey. And you might know the Sedlec Abbey because it's got that creepy bone church, the Sedlec Ossuary, which has all those skeletons arranged in artistic displays. Anyway, the Codex Gigas stayed there for about 70 years before the Benedictine monks got it back. Then, in the 15th century, the book ended up in the library of a monastery in Bramoy. It stayed there for over 100 years until it was snatched up by Rudolf II, the Holy Roman Emperor, for his personal collection. But the book's adventures didn't end there. During the 30 Years' War, a bunch of Swedish soldiers looted Prague and took the Codex Gigas as war booty. Since 1649, it's been kept in the Swedish Royal Library in Stockholm. The book even survived a fire in 1697 that destroyed a good chunk of the royal castle and the library. Apparently, someone chucked the Codex Gigas out of a window to save it from the flames, and it landed on some poor bastard below, injuring him in the process. A National Geographic documentary even featured some manuscript experts who analyzed the handwriting, and a credit to Herman the Recluse in the book. They concluded that the whole thing was probably written by a single scribe, which is pretty damn impressive considering the size of the book. Okay, let's crack open this beast and see what's inside. The Codex Gigas is like a medieval library crammed into a single massive book. It's got a bit of everything, from religious texts to historical accounts, medical knowledge, and even some magical spells. The book starts off with a couple of Hebrew alphabets, just to show off its linguistic diversity. There are some added slips with early Cyrillic and Glagolitic alphabets, just in case you need to brush up on your Slavic scripts. About half the book is dedicated to the Bible, and the whole damn thing in the Latin Vulgate version. It's got all the usual suspects: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, you know the drill. But the book of Acts and Revelations are from an older version, just to keep things interesting. After the Bible, you get two works by Flavius Josephus, a Jewish historian who wrote about the history of the Jews and their wars with the Romans. The first page of Josephus has some cool illustrations of heaven and earth in the margins, just to spice things up. Then you get a massive encyclopedia by Isidore of Seville. This thing covers everything from grammar and rhetoric to astronomy and geography. It's like a medieval Wikipedia, but in book form. Next up are some medical works, because who doesn't love a bit of medieval medicine? These texts cover everything from herbal remedies to surgical procedures. Just don't try any of them at home. After a blank page, because even medieval scribes need a break sometimes, you get the New Testament. It's got all the Gospels, the Acts of Apostles, and all those letters from Paul and the gang. Then there are a few pages with common prayers, because you gotta have those, and a page with 3 adjurations and 2 charms. These are basically magic spells, some of which come from Jewish sources. Maybe you can use them to summon a demon or cure a headache, who knows. And right before the infamous devil illustration, you get a history of Bohemia written by Cosmas of Prague. And finally, the book wraps up with a list of brothers from the Benedictine monastery where it was created, a calendar with a necrology, which is a list of dead people, some more magic formulas, and other local records. The Codex Gigas is shrouded in a chilling legend that adds to its mystique. The story goes that the scribe who wrote this massive book was a monk who had fucked up big time. He broke his monastic vows and was sentenced to be walled up alive. Can you imagine a worse way to go? Stuck in a tiny space, slowly suffocating or starving to death. Fuck that. Yeah, fuck that. Anyway, this desperate monk, facing a gruesome demise, made a deal with the devil. He promised to create a book in a single night, a book that would glorify the monastery and contain all human knowledge. It was a crazy ambitious task, even for a monk with a lot of free time. As midnight approached, the monk realized he wasn't going to make it. He was exhausted, his hand was cramping, and he still had a shitload of pages to write. So, in a moment of desperation, he prayed to Lucifer himself, offering his soul in exchange for help finishing the book. And guess what? The devil agreed. He swooped in and finished the manuscript in a flash, leaving the monk to add the devil's portrait as a tribute to his dark benefactor. This legend has persisted for centuries, adding to the mystique and intrigue surrounding the Codex Gigas. It's a story that captures the fear and fascination with the devil in medieval times, and it speaks to the human desire to explain the extraordinary through supernatural means. But let's be real, the legend is probably bullshit. Scientists have estimated that just reproducing the calligraphy in the Codex Gigas without even considering the illustrations and decorations would have taken about 20 years of non-stop writing. So, unless the devil is a master calligrapher with superhuman speed, it's unlikely he finished the book in a single night. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Y. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.